Oh, dear God.
Now I see the gallery view, but I don't see Brenda and Kelly and Elizabeth. I guess you're not. I'm gonna mute
No,
myself.
they're off video. Okay. You ready, Brenda?
Ready when you are, Mary.
We're on live. Good evening. My name is Reverend Mary Huber. I'm pastor of the Community Chapel of Holistic Healing. We are a non-denominational spiritual fellowship, a not-for-profit organization founded in 1977 by Reverend Michelle Luson, a mystic and channel for the multidimensional consciousness. She had been requested through an apparition of Swami Sivananda to start this organization and place it in the Washington, D.C. area to be one of the lights for the nation's capital. We are here to aid in personal and global spiritual transformation. We hold chapel services, we have classes, and we do and teach and do spiritual healing. But right now, of course, the spiritual healing is all on distance healing. We do have a prayer list to put people's names on. If you need to have a little help for someone, you can go to our website and submit the name there. Tonight's topic is Affirmations of Love. But before we start this or any other chapel service or any other program we have, we always begin with the three healers, otherwise known as the Faith, Hope, and Charity affirmations. So we like to recite those out loud. So while you're on mute, you can still read it and say it along. I believe in the spiritual existence of myself as a perfect image of the divine creator. In this reflection that is my physical embodiment, I have faith in the supreme guidance of my soul for my balance, my needs, and my opportunities. Outside of myself, there are also perfect images, and nothing can delude my thinking otherwise. Acknowledging my faith in the omnipresence of my divinity, I hope for realization, awareness, and acknowledgement of the existence of the great I am within myself. In understanding faith, in knowing hope, I pledge my actions, my desires, and my thoughts to the performances of myself on the physical planes of the earth, to honor, to love, and to enlighten all that is a reflection of the divine outside myself, so that my perfection is imaged back to my Creator. So help me God. Thank you. This evening, I hope to remind you of the beauty of your soul and the extremely important role you play in the fabric of the world. This may not always be evident to you, but your life and presence here is important. Several decades ago, Leo Buscaglia published a book about love, and its premise was each day we get up and decide just one thing that drives everything that day. And that decision is to love or not love. A simple premise, but I believe that that is absolutely true. When we learn that the entire universe was built by the Almighty Creator with love for His creation, then you realize that absolutely everything is composed of the energy of love. Affirmations of love can mean words, but not necessarily so. Affirmation can mean spending quality time, or taking time just to get the right gift, or giving a nice hug and a kiss, or even just performing a simple act of kindness. If you've read the book by Chapman and Campbell, you will realize that these are the 5 love languages of the human. While we have all of these in our repertoire of possibilities, one of them will be more meaningful to us than the others. We can often overlook the expression of love given by another person if it comes to us as a different kind or one of the other ones that are listed than the one we like to have. It is human nature to give what we most enjoy getting ourselves. Many marriages fall on this very point. In the courtship or romantic part of the early relationship, there is very often all of the 5 expressions: touch, quality time, gifts, thoughtful notes, and verbal expression of the wonderfulness of the other. However, as time goes on, the predominant love behavior of each person will be the frequent, if not the sole expression of the one each one likes. And if these don't match, it is possible that misunderstandings will arise. So, since expressions of love are varied, it depends on the individual's interpretation of what love is to them that drives all of this. I guess you can say in truth that there are people who do not recognize love when it's staring them right in the face. Perceptions of reality differ for each of us. It's a given fact that we are the product of our upbringing. If there were expressions of love in the family, then those were the norms established for the individuals in the family. However, it is equally true that we are individuals with unique needs according to our own internal wiring. Since our soul, or more rightly, our I am presence, is a miniature version of the great creator of all, and therefore always puts love in motion when creating, we should really remember that we were created as an expression of love from a much higher place than just the pure physical. It is well to remember that as we go through life, sometimes our surroundings might not supply the nurturing we need. And of course, love is nurturing. As we mature and learn more and more about love and its many expressions, it is truly important to understand that our own flow of love coming from us must first go to God, then to self, and then only then out to others. And I'll explain that as we go. Saint Teresa of Avila, a mystic and activist in her era, wrote in her relationship with God, she said, "Oh, love that loves me more than I can love myself or even understand." God does love us more than we humans can understand. If we were to return even a small measure of that love, we would find an unprecedented flow from the universe back to us in our lifetime. Now, understand that might take some time to perfect, but it is so worth the effort. Perhaps from that position or insight, we might possibly understand what self-love means and how to best express it. Self-love is misunderstood by many and therefore interpreted incorrectly. Those who behave in a selfish, vain, and overly demanding way would not do so if they first love God and then appreciated the life that has been given to them. Their perceptions of life in general would improve greatly, and a healthy expression would come forward. Then, in order to fulfill the admonition to love your neighbor as yourself, that would create a world of heaven on earth. Self-love takes many forms and creates amazing outcomes. The following authors may seem to make different statements, but their underlying messages are evergreen and certainly pertain to the human's ability to love successfully. In his most famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, Dr. Viktor Frankl wrote that his task at work as a psychiatrist was to help patients find meaning in their lives, no matter how dismal their circumstances. Dr. Frankl survived Auschwitz and 3 other German death camps from 1942 to 1945. But his parents and other members of his family died in those same camps. Every day in the camps, he said, prisoners had moral choices to make about whether to submit internally to those in power who threatened to rob them of their inner self and freedom. It was the way a prisoner resolved those choices, he said, that made the difference. Partly because of his suffering in the camps, Dr. Frankl developed a revolutionary approach to his psychotherapy known as logotherapy. At the core of this theory is the belief that a human's primary motivational force is search for meaning. What more can be said about the certainty of God's place in the life of anyone? It is our duty here on earth, as the old Baltimore Catechism said, to know God, to love him, and to serve him in this world, and to be happy with him forever in the next. And really, to know God is to love completely and to understand our place in the bigger scheme of things. Then trust in God would give the human spirit the lift that it would require to overcome any earthly circumstances. Certainly, Frankl was not Catholic. He was Jewish with a brilliant understanding of life. He is quoted also as saying in another book, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. What he needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. He was, of course, necessarily concerned about the fact of freedom, given what he went through. And of that, he said, paradoxically, by abandoning the desire to have freedom from something, we need the freedom to make the decision for one's unique and singular life task. This is a great insight for positive reframing and for getting on with life in general. Surely, this was a man of great moral fiber and integrity. He did not speak in a religious perspective, but with all that is known of him, I would say he was a man of God. If we're going to know ourselves and know God, we will find the love that will transcend human conditions and lift our spirit. We will be able to overcome and to see the way to proceed in life as a productive, meaningful, kind, and successful person. This was exactly why logotherapy developed, because it came to in a context of extreme suffering, depression, and sadness. And so it is not surprising that Frankl focuses on a way out of these things. His experience showed him that life can be meaningful and fulfilling even in spite of the harshest circumstances. He found out how to love life. The ability to respond to life and then be responsible to it gives us the meaningful life to live. In fact, responsibility is the essence of existence, according to Dr. Frankl. But it is not just Frankl's view, but our metaphysical understanding that tells us that humans are not simply the product of heredity and environment, but have the ability to make decisions and take responsibility for their own lives. Indeed, you will find it is the natural law of God that each soul must do their own work of advancing toward perfection. No one can do it for us. I personally have had the same viewpoint as Frankl had about education. He said that education must be education toward the ability to make decisions and then take responsibility to put them in motion so you can be free to be the person you decide to be. This sequence is sadly missing for our young people today in the formal education arena. Another great man, a contemporary of Frankl, is Erich Fromm. He is most noted for his book, The Art of Loving. Well, he did a number of other books, and in his book, The Heart of Man, Its Genius for Good and Evil, he said, I believe that the person choosing progress can find a new unity through the development of three human forces: independence, freedom, and love of life, which he interpreted as love for humanity and nature. But he also said it is the paradox of human existence that humans must simultaneously seek for closeness and for independence, for oneness with others, and at the same time, for the preservation of one's own uniqueness. Now, COVID has given us the opportunity to look at this paradox. It has given a multitude of avenues for people to demonstrate love in various ways to their fellow human beings, if they so choose. Our spiritual growth has many opportunities to expand every day. In this rapidly changing world, it is important not to lose our connection with each other, regardless of circumstances. Who thought a simple thing a few years ago that people could access physicians by video, that would be so important in today's life? The stimulation of higher dimensions, working through receptive people, always puts us ahead of the curve. This is the evidence that each human has the potential for alignment with God's plan. Fromm's concern for development of human potential had similar themes as Frankl, just expressed differently. Love, freedom, and responsibility were the common themes. Erich Fromm, also had a lot to say about freedom. He said the kind of external freedom provided by modern democracy can never be utilized to the full without an equivalent inner freedom. So please note here that this is a metaphysical understanding. Your inner world, to be free to access it, and then of course, going about doing it. He also said that although we may be free from external totalitarian influence, we are still dominated by the advice of experts and the influence of advertising. And my view is that it also means not only of products, but of ideas on possibly every topic that there is. There is always somebody out there trying to sell us something. The emphasis of our Saturday morning Zoom classes on accessing your inner world is on the need to stand clear of preconceived ideas and see something with fresh eyes. The process should start with a decision based on fact, and then a consultation with the inner world of self to find the rightness or wrongness of that fact. We have to have both to get to the truth. We are all seeking love and meaning in our life. And these often go hand in hand. If you read the book by Fromm, you'll remember that he pointed that there are several components in the true nature of love that need to be filled to be a true love. And these are care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. If you take the first one, care, and go back to the 5 love languages, any one of these exhibited to the other person would indicate that you do care. And by the way, in either of Chapman's books, and he did write one for the adult version as well, he tells you how to discover the dominant love language of another person. Then how deeply we care would be defined by taking the effort of taking responsibility for maintaining and expanding the caring activities, as well as looking in after the well-being of the other. Respect for the wishes and rights of the other would be an outgrowth of the first 2. Knowledge of the other's needs and goals and fostering those would lead to a successful life for them, and that would be a cherished component of any loving relationship. Both Frankl and Fromm espoused the concept of freedom of the individual to become who they are meant to be. In my opinion, it involves enough self-love and trust in a benevolent universe or God for the individual to accomplish this. And I'm focusing on self-love today because if we don't know what it really means to love ourselves correctly, how in the world are we able to love our neighbor or anyone else? Love is a mutual give and take. We cannot give what we do not have for ourselves first. To go beyond ourselves to love another requires aspects of love outlined by Fromm, and maybe we should consider adopting those things for ourselves. Self-care, self-responsibility, self-respect, and self-knowledge. These would be the real affirmations of love. And if fulfilled in self, they would through natural habit be extended to others. That means true sensitivity to another's needs, true understanding of the designs and motives of the other, and true respect for the rights of the other. We really could then be our brother's keeper and a perfect example for the future generations of the world. Our own love language in internal dialogue can improve and help us to stay away from negative self-criticism. Remember, whatever statement you put behind the words "I am" becomes a most powerful energy activating exactly what you just affirmed for self. So, see self in a kinder light, and you will eventually see others in that way too. While promoting a good internal relationships with yourself, do not allow an overabundance of self-praise to mar or retard your progress. This is not an exercise in self-absorption, just self-knowledge and appropriate self-assessment. It might help to remember St. Teresa's short poem, which she wrote way back in the 16th century. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing upset you. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. With patience, all things are possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough. Teresa of Avila's vision, as explained in her writing entitled The Interior Castle, she saw the soul as a round crystal palace filled with innumerable chambers that led progressively inward. She was aware that at this core or center lived the great I Am presence, the God presence within, our Creator. She always refers to this center as the Beloved. Indeed, this perfection of our own self does await us to return our consciousness there. This is the greatest love the world has ever known. Truly the love which we all seek to experience. This earthly existence gives us pale glimpses of that great love. Continually searching for the perfect love will only find its journey's end when we make that inner sojourn to find our own immortal, beloved self. All will be at peace. All will be just pure love. I invite you now to join our guided meditation by Kelly Wilk.
We take these deep breaths in and out as we feel ourselves relaxing, bringing in peace, hope, and calm. As we continue our deep breaths, we begin to see a swirl of silver light. A swirl of silvery light coming down from above us. It may seem as though it's simply coming from the sky, or the moon, or the stars, or perhaps just the goddess feminine energy. We feel this silver light as it slowly wraps around us, streaming down. It may have sparkles. It may be more a pouring out of solid silver, but we very clearly have that image of silver light coming down and wrapping around us. We see it as it comes down past our heads, our torsos, our legs all the way to our feet. We are enclosed in this silvery light. Now we feel a golden light coming down, also from the heavens. Perhaps from the sun, perhaps from the God energy, perhaps merely from the sky. We see a lovely golden light as it descends. It begins to come down to us, and it entwines itself with the silvery light. We see the lovely gold with flecks of luminescence as it comes down, wrapping around the silver light, imbuing it with gold, down our heads, all the way down our torsos, down our legs and into our feet. We have the silver light and the gold light merged together within us, giving us a nice enlightening and balancing of the feminine and masculine principles. We continue our deep breaths as we feel these two energies balance and coalesce. Now we see a great white light from above us, a beautiful bright light, the light of spirit. And this light comes down in a great pillar, completely encompassing us. Again, we feel this light stream down on us, totally enclosing our heads, our torsos, our legs, and sealing under our feet. We are wrapped in the white light of God. We are balanced. We are connected. Finally, for our journey, we create a cloak. It may have colors of silver, of gold, and of pure white, and we wrap it around ourselves as added protection for our journey. Now balanced, connected, and protected, we travel to our sacred space. The sacred space may be any outdoor space, and we take a while to really feel as though we're there. We look around to get a feel for the setting. What do we see? Now we take some time to listen around ourselves. What kind of sounds do we hear? The chittering of birds, the buzzing of insects, the rushing of water, or some completely different sound. We take note of what we feel while we are in this place. Are we resting on soft ground, grassy, spongy, sandy? Or there may be a host of other textures we may feel. We take note of these while we breathe deeply. Finally, we become aware of any smelling or tasting sensations that might be coming to us as we sit here in our sacred space. We may smell the brine of the sea or the soft scent of flowers, perhaps the rich loam of freshly turned earth, Sometimes I get the faint scent of tobacco or even a metallic tang in the back of my tongue. Take note of any of these sensations. Now that we feel truly present here in our sacred space, we look around and see, not far off, there's an opening to a cave-like structure. We just know we must go there, and we know it will be full of crystals of some sort. So we approach the cave and enter, perhaps ducking our heads, or perhaps leaning our heads back to take in the enormous space. Whatever the size of our cave, we find ourselves entering, and while it may be dark or earthy, we are not afraid. We know it is a truly safe space for healing and meditation. We enter and look around us, and we see an enormity of different types of crystals and stones. We find ourselves drawn to a cluster of crystals. We reach out our hands. We feel their pointy edges. We take note of their shape and size and color. As we continue to hold our hands out, we feel the many tips of the clusters of crystals. And along with this, we become aware of many, many strands of energy moving around and within these crystals. We know this crystal cluster can serve as a healing bed for our spirit bodies. We find ourselves getting onto it, becoming comfortable. Even though the crystals themselves felt rather pointy to the touch, they're comfortable when our spirit bodies rest on them. We don't feel the pointy edges, but only the solid, steady thrum of energy. We let this energy envelop us. And slowly sink into us, focusing on whatever parts of our body, mind, or spirit require this energy the most. We spend a few more minutes here on the healing bed of crystal, taking deep breaths, feeling the healing energy as it enters and surrounds us. And rising up, we're aware of how very deeply rejuvenated we feel. Similar to how we feel in the morning after a good night of rest, but even more deeply so. Truly rejuvenated, truly at peace. truly refreshed. We may feel the impulse to take a portion of this crystal cluster with us, knowing that we can access this full body rejuvenation whenever we require it. Giving thanks to the crystal bed, we move around a bit in this cavernous space, and we see that it is again filled with many types of crystals and stones. We're drawn to a piece of crystal or rock or stone that is very smooth and polished to the touch. It may be a crystal ball or sphere, or some other shape, so long as it has a smooth surface. Here in the crystal cave, we take a moment to touch the smooth surface with our hands. It may feel cool, it may feel hot, but it is very smooth and glassy. Taking our hands away, we bend over and look into this crystal ball or sphere or just this smooth piece of crystal. And we become aware that it can show us a message. It can be used for some bit of scrying or divination. And we take the moment to really gaze at this smooth crystalline surface. At first, we may see any cloudy spots in the crystal, any inclusions. But as we keep looking, we see an image begin to form. Perhaps it is clear, or perhaps it is cloudy. Perhaps it is dim or crystal clear, but we get some sort of image in this scrying stone. Now we give thanks to this smooth scrying stone for its aid. And we continue on our journey through the crystal cavern. Moving through it, we are aware of the other many crystals within. We see many colors, many shapes, many forms. And finally, we see one that looks almost wand-like. It has a point on one end that may be sharp or may be smoothed over. But it is certainly a wand-shaped crystal. And as we go near to it, we can really be aware of the energy pulsing inside. We pick this crystal up and we feel that it can take the energy not just in itself, but within us and direct it towards whatever means we require. Taking a moment now, we gather our thoughts and think of some person or situation or place where we may like to direct energy. With the aid of our crystal wand, we do so, sending our own energy, aided by spirit and amplified by this crystal wand, out. We send the energy out and direct it to whatever person or situation or place we must. Once that exercise feels complete, we give thanks to the crystal wand for its aid. And we give thanks indeed to the entirety of the crystal cavern. Now we begin our journey back to our sacred space, and from there to our own homes and bodies. Taking deep breaths, we safely return. Welcome back.
Well, when you return, you might want to turn your microphones back on and share what you thought about while the program was running or while the meditation was there. Well, I perceive that everyone had a very deep experience during the meditation. It was quite lovely. I want to thank Kelly for having provided that to us to be able to play it this evening.
And thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Would anybody like to share anything about our topic tonight, or about through something you heard or felt or saw in the meditation? Is like to have a little sharing time at this point. I want to thank you all for participating this evening. And I appreciate your presence here at chapel. If you would like to make a donation, you can go to the website, but then you can also possibly want to make an effort to make a membership happen. And that's also there on the website. So I invite you to listen to Mike now as he gives his message.
For 44 years, CCWH has been an amazing place for spiritual learning, growth, and value. We will continue to provide value that will enrich your spiritual journey. Donations big and small makes what we do possible. Please help us help you and others by making a donation today. Click here to visit ccwh.com. Thank you.
Invite you to enjoy the Let There Be Peace on Earth that we always have with the ending of every chapel service. Thank you for being here. And now we're off live stream, and I want to thank everyone who came on Zoom this evening for joining us, and I hope you will be back on our next chapel service.